Hey everybody and welcome back to Video Game So taking another interesting and unfortunately sad for you guys this evening because Nintendo continues their warpath to absolute destruction when it comes to anything involving Nintendo properties and their fans. It seems like Nintendo's #1 goal in the year of 2024 is to make absolutely everyone that is aware of any of this hate them entirely, and they are doing an absolutely amazing job. They've gone after emulation, they've gone after preservation, and now they are getting into so many different avenues of DMCA takedown requests. Even I could not see this coming, and I never would have guessed at it. Obviously, we've already gone over the Vimm's Lair stuff and all of the DMCA takedown requests for games that Nintendo has not supported or sold for a very long time. And it's such an odd position. So many of you comment down below that if Nintendo just sold these things for $2 a pop on some sort of online store for Switch, you would all happily give them those $2. I would as well. This is one of those situations in which it seems like they don't want to actually support the games or sell them to you, but at the same time don't want you to be able to play them either, so definitely hold on to those original cartridges. And we talked about the fact that Sega and Capcom have gotten into this as well as the ESA, but Nintendo still seems to be the leader of all this. Like, they've got the junkie itch, and the only thing that'll give them their fix is more DMCA takedown requests. Like the fact they just knocked Rhythm Heaven remix tools completely offline, down to a couple sprites and sound effects. Now, if you're not familiar with Rhythm Heaven, it's also called Rhythm Tengoku in Japan, and it's a very charming, very unique, and very weird game that, interestingly enough, started its life on the Sega Naomi on Sega hardware, one of the few instances in which Nintendo has developed and published a game on non-Nintendo hardware, so that's a little factoid that you probably weren't aware of. And while it is a fun game, it's definitely not anything that 99 out of 100 of you are going to associate with Nintendo. When you think of Nintendo properties and Nintendo protecting all of their rights, you think Mario, you think Zelda, you think Donkey Kong, but Rhythm Heaven just doesn't really pop into that equation whatsoever. That did not stop them from issuing GitHub takedown requests for 290 forks as well as the main repo, which have been completely removed from GitHub as of the recording of this video. So people that just want to remix new music into Rhythm Heaven or Rhythm Tengoku have now had their tools taken down. This is not affecting Nintendo in any way, shape, or form. You have to own a copy of the game, and Nintendo hasn't really done anything with this. So many music rhythm games support fan modifications and fan input on new tracks. Think of pretty much every other popular rhythm game on the market now. There is a mechanism to allow fans to contribute to the community because the community drives these games forward. Rhythm games are nothing without fans making new music and participating, but Nintendo absolutely hates that. They do not want to do anything other than sell you something. You play it the way that they gave it to you, and God forbid you try to change anything about it whatsoever. They are going to come after you. Basically anything involving Nintendo that Nintendo didn't ship is at risk for a DMCA right now. Now, of course, there were some sprites and sound effects within the GitHub code and files, and on the legal front, Nintendo would have the right to do something like this. If you go back to the Rhythm Tengoku footage, any of the sprites or sound effects that could have been included would be applicable for a DMCA takedown request because it would be infringement. But is this the level that Nintendo really wants to pursue now? A couple stray sprites, that seems petty. Obviously something like removing Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door on a DMCA takedown request when the game has just actively been remade for Switch, you can see the logic in something like that. Or even stuff like The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, you could understand if not agree with the reasoning behind it. But tools to add your own music into Rhythm Tengoku, that is something that Nintendo couldn't abide by. There are two ways to be right. There's the legal way to be right, and there's the moral way to be right. Nintendo might be right in the Rhythm Tengoku, but is it something that they want to do? Now, you may or may not agree with Yuzu being taken down and settling that lawsuit, but you can certainly understand the logic of that. It is current hardware currently for sale, and even though with all of the case law precedent, emulation should be legal here, you could at least put yourself in Nintendo's shoes and follow the logic as to why they would not want something like Yuzu actively available for people to download and play. When it comes to something like Rhythm Heaven, why would they even care? All this is doing is buying them a massive ton of bad will with fans, and I don't really see any upside to this whatsoever. but it is pure evidence that Nintendo is going to go after absolutely everything. Gary's Mod got hit, Rhythm Heaven got hit, everything involving Nintendo just seems to be so volatile right now. Even different animations for Smash Brothers, modifications that just change the characters' movements, have been hit. And again, I do have to tell you that because the sprites and the sound effects were in the GitHub files, technically Nintendo is 100% quote-unquote right here with their takedown request. There is no disputing that. I'm not trying to say that Nintendo didn't have the right to do this. I'm trying to say why the hell they would even bother in the first place. It seems like at least once a week I'm making one of these videos and it just keeps going further and further downhill. Nintendo is now just poking at stuff like simple sprites and sound effects for a game that they don't really have anything to do with anymore. But even more random, they're now going after sheet music. People that write the musical notes on a piece of paper that if you play on an instrument, you will recreate Nintendo music. And apparently they've done this to two different makers, one of which says that they have correctly licensed the sheet music, and we'll go over exactly what license that is right now. But the two people involved in this are very talented musicians. They make some incredible compositions and put them down on sheet music. Now me personally, I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever. I could train for 10 years, my hands would still be like trying to hit a piano with 2 bricks and hoping a song came out. This is definitely a niche, and even more way so than something like Rhythm Tengoku. And Sheet Music Boss here did say that they've correctly licensed the music and that the original creators were being paid revenue from this, which is exactly what you would do. Now the upside to this is I can explain this very clearly because in my entire career outside of being a filmmaker, I have over 20 years experiencing licensing musical compositions for film, television, streaming, and everything else. I have negotiated and dealt with every single major record label, including a ton of small ones, mostly in synchronization, which is important for the filmed medium, but I've dealt with every single type of license. A print license is what you would need here for the sheet music that is being created. So if this is true and Sheet Music Boss has appropriately licensed these, I don't understand what Nintendo would have to stand on legally. And secondarily, is this really the bottom of the barrel for Nintendo? They've scraped the damn barrel so hard, they put a hole through the bottom of it, and they are now just hitting dirt. And Purple Shala here, another extremely talented musician who has a YouTube channel, can't recommend it enough, definitely check it out. I will leave a link below. Support the people that are getting attacked right now. Has gotten all of their sheet music removed as well, and they even stated that maybe Nintendo is going to start doing some official arrangements in the future. I highly doubt that. This is probably going to be a situation where Nintendo just basically stops somebody from doing something they have no interest in doing and never doing it themselves. So you can understand why maybe Nintendo might not want Super Mario Bros. 2 available on Vimm's Lair. That can make some logical sense because they do actively support that game. Sure, you can play your original cartridges, but if you own an original cartridge for something like Super Mario Bros. 2 or the original Castlevania, then you're well within your right to emulate that ROM on whatever emulation platform, device, or otherwise you so see fit. That is settled law, and again, I do need to be specific. I am talking about the United States of America because that is where 95% of my experience in this topic comes from, but I do have experience in licensing for international use as well as dealing with companies that don't exist in America, so it is something that I'm looking more into. I've even gotten access to a Japanese law database to do some more research. But Mr. Sujano mentioned this on his Twitter as well, going over some of the Reddit posts that the Rhythm Heaven Studio team have talked about, that these are true and correct DMCA takedown notices. And if you never checked out Mr. Sujano's channel, definitely do. The dude has a voice, you'd want to listen to him read the phone book, trust me, and he's got some great emulation news and updates there as well. And the last thing Nintendo did was a bunch of DMCA takedown requests on different variants of lockpick getting your keys out of your Switch. And while I very much believe that this would be found to be legal in a court of law if it was clean room reverse engineered, at least this makes logical sense. This is how you run games via Switch emulation, you need those keys. But stuff like sheet music, stuff like modding in fan music into Rhythm Heaven, all of this stuff with the ROMs, it just seems so incredibly heavy-handed, and I don't think Nintendo's going to stop, and probably the next thing they do is going to be even weirder and more hilarious. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll do another video when Nintendo does something stupid again, and in this instance, that'll probably be very soon. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.